but yeah, French, and basically like a derivative of Laura.
Laura, yeah.
And my daughter is Laurel, which I didn't know. Like, so basically we are derived of the same name. So
yeah, that's cool.
That just got, hi everyone. That just got me thinking, I think that I've heard this done in some ECFE classes as icebreakers and stuff, but how about if we go around and just do like a 1-minute thing of the history of your name?
I'm done.
And Lorraine started us off.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll go because mine is like not interesting, although it's my name and I'll just own it. I think I just came from the 1950s when Susan was the Heather and Ashley and Hillary of those years, and that was it. My middle name is Kay, but it's spelled K-A-E, which is about the only interesting thing of my white bread name. And that too has absolutely no history, except that my mother said that my dad wanted to name me after a dog. And she refused, so they shortened it to Kay. Anyway, that's the history of my name. How about Nikki?
Well, I can speak to my Hebrew name, and that is Sevilla, which ends in a hey, and I'm named after my paternal grandfather, who would have been Tzvi, and it was typically in a Jewish tradition, you don't name kids after somebody who is alive, and he was not. But his name was male, and my parents wanted to name me after him. And in order to do so, you needed to add like a female ending. And so they added a hey at the end, and I'm Sevilla. So yeah, that is how I came to my name. And I will go to Ellen.
Mine just came from my niece, or my older cousin, who's 20 years older than me. My mom was the youngest in her family. And so her oldest sister had a Jane Ellen, and then they just liked Ellen. And then Ruth is after my grandma, and she was very honored. So I am Ellen Ruth. So just, they liked it. And as a kid, there was one other Ellen in the entire school. And I hated being the only Ellen. I wanted to be like a Jennifer or a Katie. And now I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I'm an Ellen. No matter where I go, I'm the only Ellen, which is pretty fantastic. So. Trina.
Okay, I am Trina. My mom loved the name Trina, and she babysat a Trina is the story that was passed down to me. And I also have a list of probably like 10 names on paper that my dad wanted to name me. Trina wasn't on there. It was kind of real popular 60s names were on there. But I guess I was the only girl in my family, long awaited for a daughter. So my mom went out and Trina Marie it was. I'll pass it to you, Lori.
I don't really know. My mother had common names, Diane, Mary, Dean, and Lori. I really do like the spelling of my name the best of all the Loris out there. But the one thing I remember about my name is, when you're young and you're cool and your name isn't. And so I remember telling my mom, I don't know, this is crazy. I don't know what age I was, but I told my mom I did not want to be named Lori anymore. And she said, okay, what do you want to change it to? And I said, Raquel. And my mom, I had the most awesome mom in the world. She just looks at me and she said, okay, if you want to change it, you can. And that's all she said to me. And I never once entertained that thought again. Oh, still, she was a good mom. Okay,
Do
Carly?
you think, Lori, do you think it was like Raquel Welch? Was that a Raquel that you knew?
Well, no, I don't think I would have. I
It's
mean, I
like,
was just
it's
a little.
not a common name.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know where it came from.
I remember wanting to be Jem for a while. I remember that cartoon in the 80s. She was, I can't remember her name, but she would touch her earrings and she'd become Jem the superstar. I was like, I want to be Jem. Laura, you got to pick somebody.
Oh, am I on mute?
I don't know.
The only one that Carly, can you go?
Carly,
Yeah,
don't
can
think
you hear me?
Okay.
Okay. The history of my name. Well, my full name is Carlyn, Karlyn. And I'll try to make this a quick story because it's pretty interesting, I think. Anyway, my mother was pregnant with me, and my grandmother had gone to Bayfield, Wisconsin, and took a watercolor painting class at a gallery which was owned by Carlin Holman, and came home with her business card and gave that to my mom, and that is how I got my name. And a few years ago, my husband and I were in Bayfield, and we were driving through, and I saw this gallery, and I was like, oh my God, I think I was named after the woman who owns that. I had never thought about it, never sought it out, never was very curious. So we stopped, and I actually got to meet her. And I'm also a watercolor artist. And so the following year, I was able to go to Spain with her and spend a week having her teach me watercolor. And she's since passed on, but I am very grateful that that random happening. So I got to meet her, and that's how I got my name. But I've always been called Carly, so it's confusing to other people. But anyway, that's my story. I'm sorry I missed everybody else's. I've had a lot going on today. Thanks, Nikki.
we still have Carrie and Yuji and Becca.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I didn't miss everybody's then.
Do you want me to go next?
Sure.
Okay. So history of my name, I always kind of joked when I was a kid because I was child number 6. So I got like the least favorite name because they used the favorite names first, right? And I have 3 sisters. But they just picked Carrie because they liked it. No story there. But then the special part, I guess, is that I got my mom's middle name and none of my sisters got that. So my middle name is Anne, and that was my mom's middle name as well. So, Yuji.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so in China, we use Chinese character. So when I was born, my uncle, my mom's younger brother, he checked with the Chinese dictionary and got the name for me. So I never liked that name. I mean, so there are 2, like we have total 3 characters. The first one is our last name. In China, your last name first, right? And then there's the middle name. So that middle name, that character is so difficult, no one could read it. I mean, when like no teacher ever, there was only one teacher throughout my schooling. There was only one teacher could pronounce my name correctly. And I didn't like that. And also the last name, like, I feel like it's a very village girl, right? So it's, so I never liked it. And then later, when in 2021, I moved to Shanghai, so I decided to change my name, so the pronunciation is the same, but I changed different characters. So it's like I feel more cool. And then, however, when I came to the United States and they use the pin, the pins, they do not use the character anymore, right? It doesn't matter which characters, like it just pin, the sound is the same, right? So that is history of my, but still I enter the same problem, right? No one could pronounce my name in America with a pin. They call me my first name, I use Yu Jiang, like and then the first name is Yu, and they call me you, and then when they call me you, everyone thought they like no one knows who the person talking to. So I have been struggling for that, and eventually, after I moved to Montana, and my fiance, and she suggested me to use Yuji, and I really like this name. Right, it's combined my first name and my last name, and also it is in a simpler version, and it's easier to pronounce. I really like this name, so this is my history. Thank you, and I will call Becca.
After all these stories, I wish I had a wonderful one, and I don't. So I will end on just a boring one. But everyone on my mom's side of the family was named after someone. And my mom hated her name all of her growing up. When I was a little girl, she changed the spelling of it, and then she liked it much better. But so she was determined when she and my dad had kids that they would not be named after anyone. So they just kind of picked names they like. And so Rebecca Elaine, I think my dad picked my first name. It was going to be Rebecca or Rachel, and Rebecca Elaine. And there were a couple other Rebeccas, and I ended up getting called Becky for a while in middle school, which felt very, very, very much not like me. And so by the time I went to college, I just introduced myself as Becca. So not because I don't like the name Rebecca, but because I didn't want to be called Becky. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Not super interesting, but I love all the other stories though. And I love the power of changing your own name, even just by the spelling, like that Yuji did and that my mom did. I feel like that empowerment of claiming your name as your own, even if it's just changing the way it's spelled in some way. My mom was Marion with an O, and her middle name was Mitchell, which was a family name. So she felt like she totally had a boy's name. She's Marion Mitchell Forsyth. And she just changed the O to an A in her first name, and it was Marion. And you say it the exact same way, but she liked it better.
Thank you. Wow. That is empowering. I mean, just little things that we do when we embrace whatever we come to understand our identities to be. And it just seems suitable that what we're called from there on out, is sort of matches who we are. So excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. That was spontaneous and lovely. Yeah, one of the teachers, I think in St. Paul, had mentioned that she started out with classes that way and had a teaching across cultures class or a families across cultures class. And it was a really wonderful way too for a diverse set of families to really understand sort of, like, I love, Nikki, in the Jewish tradition about naming after someone who has passed and using the first letter from their name and everything, right? And I think that that's a really lovely way of just telling the stories of connected to culture and connected to family and everything, and what that meaning is. So thank you. Ellen, you said, oh, you also has an opener, and it's an enjoyable way to help parents feel comfortable. Yeah.
Who doesn't love talking about how they pick their kids' names? And sometimes they're really great stories. So if you ever have a group and you're just like, oh, just start with that, and you'll go. And you find out how many of them sometimes have the same middle name. I had a class once where two kids had the middle name of Henry, and then two other ones had the middle name of Adelaide. And I was like, what? Are you serious? In a group of like 10, I was like, what are the odds? So those parents bonded instantly. It was pretty great.
So what's going on this week? What would you guys like to talk about? Christy, you probably saw through the listserv, Christy Hansen had contacted me about using Padlet. And it was interesting because she said that she had she wanted to pose a question to the group or get ideas from the group. But in between the times that we met, and was using technology to do it. And I said, you know, it's interesting because that's exactly what prompted our design of Parentopia, was not about technology to technology, but more face-to-face. And then, because the one thing parents said was, I want a way to connect with the families and with the teachers between every Friday or every Tuesday or whatever. So it was just like, yep, just, supplemental access. We can't wait to see our people till whatever week. And so, it's a chance for us to connect. So, so she sent that out. I hope you all saw it. And if you have ideas that you can respond, but that's cool. So what can the group do for you today? Oh, my last announcement, sorry, that relates to everybody, is about Menafee. So, so Perfect Connections will be a feature at Menafee, and we will be at the last, during the last session, which I think is actually lovely. And I built that into, they wanted to, it felt a little awkward because they said they wanted a workshop description, which I understand. They had to put something in the program, but I was thinking, not a workshop. But so I just said, come join, end your conference time by joining your friends and colleagues, and, where we talk about anything and everything ECFE. So I think that is 11:30 maybe, but I'll make a note, and I'll let, so everybody know just what time that's, but otherwise I don't really expect that it's going to be too different. My only thing is, since it's Menafee, how many people will be there? And if we see sort of early on that it's we're getting closer to 50 or something, I might ask that we break up into a couple smaller groups to facilitate. And so I'm going to ask those of you who are here, I know a lot of you do join us every week, and as you would feel comfortable, just getting people talking, because that's what you do and you're good at it. So anyway, all right, that's the end of my announcements. I feel like I'm in my undergraduate class. Anyway, all right, so what can we do for you today? How can we make your life better?
I can ask a question, and that is, I'm curious to know if your programs are using the ECFE Quality Indicators in any capacity, if you as a staff take a look at those ever, or if you do any planning off of those, or what that looks like. That is something that my program, and Carly and I are part of the same program, that we have been taking a look at, but I think a lot of us are curious about how other programs might or might not be using them. And if you're not, if you do have something that you use as an alternative.
I think they're always in the back of everybody's mind as they're preparing. Do you know what I mean? Like they always, I think early childhood teachers, like I don't know it as well because I'm not creating curriculum around it. But I think putting them, like showing parents, like the most I do is show parents, hey, here are these early childhood indicators of progress, and everything that we have in the classroom links to what your child is learning. It's about all I do, but I kind of feel like, you know how the PECCF sort of shapes and molds everything that we do in parent ed? It's just kind of this thing in the back that we always know. Like we know what we know, right? We're all preaching to the choir when we're creating content and curriculum. But I feel like it's just like your inner knowledge,
Yeah, I want to jump in and say I wasn't talking about the ECIPs. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I wasn't talking about the ECIPs. I was talking about the ECFE Quality Indicators, the implementation tool. I will grab a link. 1 second.
I don't even know what is that? Link is good because I have no idea. Never mind.
I feel like we used to use it more than current. I feel like the ECIPs sort of have shown more Like we look at that more often now.
Someone rephrased a question for Sarah Fritz. She might know. Oh, it's in the chat.
Were you guys asking me something?
I'm sorry, Sarah. I was just saying, is anybody using the document that Nikki just put in the chat? Is anybody using that to plan programming? I've never seen this document. I mean, I have seen it, but since I've not used it, so.
I don't use that. Sorry, friends. I don't use this.
Any of you took Parent Ed with us at the U should look, should look familiar to you.
Yeah, it looks familiar, but I don't think I've never created anything around it.
As a
No, I use
state person, and then coming back later, I've never seen it.
Weird. It keeps kicking me. Weird. This is the ECFEs. This is what we use this is my framework that I use to plan Parent Ed because it aligns with the ECFEs, the early childhood indicators of progress that we use for birth to 5. So that's what we use. That's what I'll be quiet now.
What I'm talking about actually is more, not so much about how we're developing our curriculum, right? We're all using the Parent Education Core Curriculum Framework and the ECFEs, but this one talks about our outreach and as a program, ways that it's progress monitoring for our program. That's what I'm kind of wondering and asking about if anyone has used this.
I am thinking that like our advisory group would probably like to have this tool because they sometimes aren't sure like how to give feedback on what we do or don't do.
So this is interesting to me because this document we do use in our program evaluation course, and we use it more in the sort of program development and sort of testing your program before you evaluate it, right? And so all of the things that you intend to do in your program that make it a high quality program in terms of the fact that you have licensed professionals who teach in your program, for instance. If somebody from another state came and said, show me that you have, that you're who you have teaching here to these parents and these children are high quality professionals. You'd whip out and go, well, they all have teaching licenses, they all have degrees, right? So you have that documentation. And so the different components for delivery of programming to children, to parents, for quality staff, for outreach, for diversity, like all of those quality components of your program, and these are different than the curriculum guide, right? That's more, what do you aim to do with your parents, or what do you aim to do with the children in your classes? And those are great, right? Because those are the kind of indicators of quality or of what you're aiming for. But these are more, how are you running your program? And that's a huge difference. There should be a connection, right?
Yeah.
That a quality program will lead to these outcomes. But if we only look at the outcomes, and I apologize if I'm getting into teacher mode, but if we only look at the outcomes and we ignore the quality dimensions of our program, it's really easy to shoot a hole through. But how do we replicate the great thing that you're doing here, right? And so I think what's happened is, and if you look at that document, it's got a 2001, it's probably older than you are. It's got a 2001 date on it. So my guess is that it's not actively used in the programs because you all have been doing what you're doing in your districts for so long, right? And, but I would say, I think that there is great merit to the document itself. I know when we use it in our program evaluation class, I will ask students to identify, how would you document these things, right? Where would you find these? And you hand select, what do you believe are the quality dimensions of your program? And by doing that, even as a hypothetical exercise, I mean, I'll tell you that with the university, we have to meet standards of practice, right? Standards of effective practice in content of parenting education, and then in general for teacher prep. And the state has pushed us to include those SEPs in our syllabi, right? And whether students care to see it or anybody else cares to see it. And I can say, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know my program is really high quality. My students are really satisfied. They go on to be licensed teachers. You know, I'm talking to all of you, you're out in the field and all of that. But I will say that, feet to the fire, when I have to look at those teaching standards and then connect those to what I am doing in a 13-week course or something like that, it's really helpful to me, because sometimes I'm reminded about stuff that I have sort of soft pedaled through the years, especially say around diversity. But I appreciate sort of the nudge of, you know, if we care enough that this is a high quality program, then, you know, you should appreciate being nudged to move in that direction. Anyway, so that's just my little sermon, but that's what that early childhood indicators of progress document, in my mind, it has a lot of value for. I think the larger question is how it's actively being used in the programs.
No, it looks really, to me, it looks real. I mean, I just scanned it now. I don't have it. And but it looks really useful to me. I also think, because I am the coordinator here, you know, in Big Lake, I also think when I do that community needs assessment for the state, this is also like, that's a great thing to have for that also. So thanks, friends, for sharing something that I don't have. This is why I come to this group.
Nikki, is this helpful? Oh, am I muted? No.
Yes, I actually am completing a master's and have been in the course, the evaluation assessment course, and our program is right now using this document to take a look at some of our programming and just kind of practices in the way that we're doing things. But I do question, and you know, there are a lot of practices that come forward that, you know, when you're going through school, that you think, yes, that's absolutely something I do in the field, and other things like this that I didn't know. I actually didn't know if other programs were all using this or not, as I'm not a part of all of these other programs. So curious. And I think too, we've encouraged just in class and in our conversations for the teacher candidates to talk with their cooperating teachers and ask them that same question. Is your program using this in the broad scope of taking a look at progress monitoring? And I don't know what the answer to that is, if, you know, what answers the teacher candidates are receiving. So I was just curious.
My guess too is that this is something that is some collateral damage of decentralization at MDE. And so this was a document that I'm sure Betty Cook and Lois Knudsen developed early on. I mean, this is 2001, in the heyday where there was a lot of this kind of really giving strength to what ECFE programming is about. And so I assume Mike Brown knows that it exists, but I'm sure he's so overwhelmed and extended that, you know, it's not top of mind for him. And, but, you know, in bringing this up, Nikki, I think the other thing is I look at it with the date of 2001, I think it would be a very useful conversation to find out, does this need to be revised in any way? I mean, you know, after 20 years, if we think about changes in audience, I would very much scrutinize it in terms of technology integration, right? In terms of teaching practices, outreach practices, all the good things. I mean, Carrie alone could just pull out the home visiting section, right? And take a hard look at it and scrutinize for whether or not, you know, it's what we, so I think there is a good question too about the most important thing is this a document that can be of use in some way and continued use? And then the second would be, and if so, is it time for it to be dusted off and looked at again if there's value to that? And then the third thing I think would be, you know, getting it out there, because if at least half of you didn't even know that this existed, and there is the potential for it to be valuable to you. I'll give you another way that it can be valuable is that if there is a challenge to your program, it gives you pages and pages and pages of indicators to pull out to create a set of standards to demonstrate what you're doing. Even if you hand select them knowing that you're doing it, it gives you a document that you can say, here are 10 quality indicators of practice in ECFE, right? And they're beautifully worded. And I can even have a little checklist of in development, you know, like in the planning stages, in process, completed. You know, if you need to see a little checklist of how we're doing, and for people from the outside, it gives them that sense of you are not just doing this off the cuff. You are not just making this up as you go along. There is a standardized document that is in place that you are adhering to. So it's almost like saying, how much do you weigh? Well, I don't know, probably 100 pounds versus saying, okay, here's my scale and it's been calibrated and my doctor signed it off. And when I step on it, it says that I'm this weight, right? So anyway, so you can tell that I've got value for this document, but I do think that the more salient question is its relevance and its currency. And if there is a general feeling of it being useful, you know, to get it into folks' hands. And and then you could also make it electronic, right? I mean, not just a PDF, but some sort of a thing that you could check off along the way or something.
Susan, do you know 20 years ago when it was developed, what the intention was for how it would be used? Was it really open-ended, or was it used a specific way 20 years ago?
I don't know. I wasn't here 20 years ago when it was created. My guess is that it was an attempt to provide standardization for the development of new ECFE programs. So there's a large school district. The school district is split in two. The part B of the new school district is creating a new ECFE program, right? So that again, it wasn't just, it's like, why do we have licensed teachers? Because it's a standard that is required, right? So this way, somebody could look at their ECFE program and have a whole set of quality standards. That's my guess, standards of quality to replicate, to keep all programs very, very similar in integrity.
Susan, I was wondering, are you aware of anything comparable that's more current?
For ECFE? Mm-hmm. No.
Okay.
There may be individual, I mean, some of the school districts are really innovative and they're really, you know, like when we were looking at evaluations, Forest Lake had put all this effort into creating an evaluation, right? So just because there's not something statewide, it's possible that something like that for an individual school district exists. I think that'd be a good question. Yeah.
Susan, so you talk about these indicators. I wonder if there are indicators, you know, for the quality of ECFE in preventing ACEs and student mental health. Are there something related to these two things?
I mean, it's not an unusual, it's not at all an unusual concept, right? To have quality indicators of programs. Years ago, I used to work in childcare and I mean, not in childcare, but I mean, childcare policy and training and preparation and stuff. And and in those years, school age childcare, you know, for kids from 3 to 6, grades was just getting going. And then there was like a national effort, the National Association for School Age Childcare, and then they set a group of standards so that then when there were after school programs that were being developed, they had a set of standards to follow. So it's certainly not a unique or unusual concept. Anytime that you're looking at quality program development, you know, and you've been doing it enough that you know what quality is.
Yeah.
So yes, I would guess so that there's certainly for community mental health, things like that. It's just a matter of finding either the right agency within the state or the federal government. Good luck with that. Or an association, you know, like a MNAFI or something like that is doing it.
Yeah, no, I always interested in, you know, the ECFE's role, family education's role in preventing ACEs and preventing the students' mental health problems, right? So I really, you know, I really want to research on this. I mean, how I feel ECFE has unique value in that. Right. So, but I didn't find much research about this topic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that that's a great idea because so now you can do an intersection, right? So an intersection between the standard practice and aims of ECFE and a specific application to solve a societal issue. Right.
Oh.
And so in this case, that societal issue would be, say, the adverse childhood. What is it? Adverse.
Adverse childhood experiences.
Okay. Yeah. Adverse. Yeah. And so that would be something where, sorry, you've just got me going now. Is let's say that there's a grant possibility for reducing children's risk of ACEs or something like that. Right. Coming from the state government, an ECFE coordinator could step up and say, our program should get that money because what we do in ECFE addresses the ACEs, right? This is how, if you look at these, this is what we do for quality, our indicators of how our program runs. These are the ACEs and the evidence between, say, something like programs that are offered by credentialed and degreed professionals are more likely to be successful in promoting positive parenting, right?
Oh, yeah.
Here's this quality indicator for ECFE that says that we only hire, you know, quality and licensed professionals. So I think that there is real value that these exist because then when you are applying what ECFE does, right, to a particular area like the ECEs, or ACEs or community mental health or something like that, that's what I'm talking about, an intersection.
Oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. Maybe I should look at if there are grants, you know, to prevent ACEs. Maybe I can apply this for Metana.
Yeah. And I want everybody to get right on that because you're not doing anything. So you get out there and you write those grants. But no, I think, that's one of the most, you know, a lot of the stuff, Nikki, and I'll just say this to you again, you know, a lot of the stuff that we teach in our classes, you know, you can use on a daily basis, but you may not use on a daily basis, but it is developing the skills and competencies for a career of practice. And so, you know, having documents like that can be useful in a broader way.
So you guys, a really quick idea that kind of piggybacks on our discussion from last week that I want to share out. We talked about collecting parent stories and how powerful those stories are, especially with sharing with legislators. And I got an idea in my head this week as I have some families who they're realizing that this next spring session is their last of ECFE. So I got the idea to give them an ECFE exit interview in the form of just a Google thing. And I will ask the questions, like, I wrote down these questions. So like, what has ECFE meant to you as a parent? How did it affect you getting connected to services? What relationships have you? So I'm going to think of some nice open-ended questions. And I thought, what a perfect way to get them at kind of their most vulnerable when they're feeling that sadness of being gone from this community that they've maybe been a part of. And some of these families, you guys, they've been here for 6-7 years. So I kind of thought an ECFE exit interview to collect a story. So I just wanted to share that as you guys may be having some families leaving, and just some time to think about what you want to put in your exit survey. So I just wanted to share that because I was like, wait a minute. Yes.
I brought that up to our parent advisory council too, because we had our parent advisory council meeting like the Monday after we met, and they were all on that, friends. Like, so that's another thing. Talk to your parent advisory council, because they were very passionate about that. They're like, how do I talk to somebody and how does this happen? And I love the exit thing though.
And I was just going to say, there are going to be parents who are so grateful to be able to tell their stories, like to have a place to do that. I was one of those parents who was 8 years solid Thursday mornings in St. Paul, right? Like, and leaving was traumatic. I mean, honestly, knowing I was going to leave is part of what made me go into becoming a parent educator, so I wouldn't have to, right? So, I mean, there are going to be a lot of parents who are like, this was that meaningful to me. And being able to explain that without just crying in class and saying I'm going to miss it, right? But to say why and how will be powerful for them too.
And kind of a piggyback on that, has anybody made, this is going to sound super lame. So for my newborn class, I make a graduation certificate and it says, thanks mom and dad. Like I have a mom one that says, thanks mom for bringing me to baby talk. And then I have one if dads come, thanks mom and dad for bringing me to baby talk. And if I had any same-sex couples, it would say, thanks, mom and mom. Thanks, dad and dad. I haven't had any graduate yet. But anyway, and I put the child's age and their birth weight at their graduation date. So have any of you made that for your families when they graduate? I thought that might be kind of a nice thing to do. I'm just curious if anybody, I've always wanted to like think about getting a mug and being like, I'm an ECFE parent of 9 years or whatever. I don't know, like, I was just trying to think of a way to like acknowledge, like,
I've done paper crowns for my parents. Very fancy.
I love that.
They each got paper crowns, the parents that were graduating, and then, we'd take a picture with their paper crowns that you graduated from. Not for the children, for the moms, the dads, the grandmas. Yeah, those, all the grown-ups got crowns.
So I'm still a very, very beginning teacher, and last year was my first year, so I didn't really have an end of the year. This is my second year, and we haven't gotten to the end of the year yet. And so I'm not sure what the norm is in my district yet because I haven't really experienced it. But it seems like, at least in my district, there's just kind of a drifting away more than this is my last day coming to ECFE, I'm graduating. I don't know if other districts have that. I think partly because we have a very strong preschool program. So there's this kind of wishy-washy, you could still be going to ECFE, but parents are making the decision, am I going to do that or preschool, or am I going to do a combination? So there's not this culminating, like, my kid's going to pre-K or kindergarten next year and I'm done with ECFE moment in the same way. I don't know. It's just, I don't know what my district is like, but I would love to honor that, that time that parents spend with their kids doing early childhood development and parenting education.
Sarah, I know, or Rebecca, I know in St. Paul where you were just a mom for years. So they had the end of the year picnic, what was it called? The
We had a big ice cream social at Crossroads is what we had, but
Oh, okay. Does each, okay, because I was familiar, maybe I
does
thought.
their
it
own
was
thing.
Okay. How was that as a closure activity and graduation thing?
It was always a fun thing at the end of the year that our family looked forward to, and it was super well attended, but it was not formal in any way. So it was just like woohoo, like see you next year, except some of us won't, you know. So my parent educator always, like the next to last class or something like that, would say how many people are graduating, and I give them a chance just in class to talk a little bit about, this is my last kid and he's going to school next year, so this is our last class, or we're moving, or there, you know, whatever reason it would be their last class. So that we were given some class time for that. But I feel like rituals are important, and it might have been fun to have something a little bit more substantial. I mean, for some parents, ECFE is a fleeting part of their lives, and for others, it's much more grounding, like defining part of when they had young children. So it's the end of an era when you move through and past that.
Ellen, I was wondering, since you put some thought into this, would you be willing to share your exit interview questions?
When I write them, sure. Right now, I've only got 2.
Okay, well, you got to start more than some.
How's that? You know
Are
how
you-
I love to. You know
Are
how
you
I love
doing
to
this
share
out
things.
electronically, Ellen?
Oh yeah.
Or, yeah. Okay.
What I'll
Okay.
probably do is just throw together some options and then share it out in a Google Doc. So
Yeah.
and I'll probably put it in a Google form. I may also, if parents are better at writing, I might make a paper copy and then give them a self-addressed envelope so they can mail it back. If they wish, some parents. But then again, you know how sometimes the papers go home and end up in a stack on the kitchen counter, never to be seen again.
Because I was
I'd rather
thinking,
than
if
the
you're
virtual.
doing it electronically and you have like a nice, short, sweet, open-ended question, like what's, you know, if you had one word to describe or you know what coming to ECFE meant, you know, like you could word cloud that thing, right? You could just, because it's going to dump into an Excel spreadsheet, and you can just copy and paste that single column of responses. And the nice thing about asking them for a word or 3 or something like that is then you're not word clouding all of the A's and thes and is, because you can certainly word cloud full sentences, right? But the advantage here is that anyway, but with the word cloud, what I found in asking ECFE parents to do that is that you do get a lot of, and because they're doing it individually and they're not hearing each other, because you can sometimes go around and somebody will hear, oh, it was awesome. And then they get to the second person and go, oh, I was going to say awesome. So then their word is kind of like not really heartfelt, but when they do it individually, and they're offering, you know, you'll see the same word come up over and over. And that can just be like gangbusters to share from these parents. This is what ECFE means to them.
We do that here. I make it into a giant poster.
There you go.
Yep. Yep. They love it. It's awesome. I could give you guys a tour.
Show us your space, Sarah.
I think we talked about this before, but what is the easiest word cloud application to use?
I know there's Mentimeter, which I think is Sarah Hardy's favorite. It's not your favorite, Sarah. You're muted, love. Word It Out, another one.
I ended up using Poll Everywhere, which is fine.
I just use WordCloud, wordcloud.net or wordcloud.com, I think. There's also Wordle, WORDLE. That's Sarah, maybe the one that you have. The one that we talked about this briefly last week. It kind of depends on if you have everybody in a room and you want to do it quickly and everybody see the word cloud. you know, like the Mentimeter and the Poll Everywhere can be great for instant feedback. If you're doing it the way that Ellen is talking about, where she'll gather sort of asynchronously from folks, so she has a tiny bit more time, then she can just get all of the responses and then plug those into a word cloud. My sense with the ones that take a little more time is that you have a little more features though. You can change color, you can change direction of the text, you can put it into shapes, things like that.
Sarah, is it horrible of me? I need to make a bulletin board for our new space. Is it morally wrong for me to borrow your word cloud until I make one of my own?
You can, no, I can send it to you.
I would love to be able to put up, because
Is it morally wrong?
to use the words that you're famous, but I have a feeling that it will look pretty much the same, you know. But in the mean, I would love to have it up because daycare families walk by our door every day. Preschool families walk by our door every day. And I feel like having those words up would be a really great,
yeah, I'll find it. Find it on my doc.
Make my own.
Find it.
This idea of the exit interview or the collecting stories is making me think about and wonder if someone else would be able to do that for us in our programs. Like if Ellen has that list of questions, why couldn't, I don't know, an administrative assistant that might have more time in the summer, or something like a advisory council member, something like that, to just say, hey, you're done, to the parent, are you willing to get a phone call for an exit interview? And someone else could collect all of that and have all those stories too. I just wonder about how much time everybody has, especially at the end of the school year. And that might be nice to take something off your shoulders too.
I also think though that to play up what Ellen had mentioned of peak vulnerability, you're gonna get that during class time, not as much in the summer when they're up to their eyeballs and other things. It's like it's gonna be at the end of the year during class time, I think.
You want to get them when they're fresh and sad. It sounds horrible, like I'm preying on their vulnerability. But I mean, let's face it, if we want good stories, that's the time to pick the fruit when it's ripe.
That also just says something about myself, because I'm one of those people who doesn't like all those gushy goodbyes. I don't even want to do the last class. I know that might seem odd because ECFE teachers are so compassionate and but I'm just like, it is so much during those last couple weeks, right? And I'm like, oh, someone else can call them and get those stories. It's just kind of funny how different we are too.
Well, that's why I think, I mean, when my parent advisory council was really into it, that's why I think it would be cool if they did it. Do you know what I mean? Like if they pick some other, I just wonder how that would be different too. Like I'm doing the interview, it might be different if it's a parent to parent type of thing too. I don't know. I'm going to see how it works. We'll see.
Okay, for something completely different, has anybody else here gotten both of their vaccine shots? Did anyone else get just totally hit by a truck by shot 2? Okay. I got my second shot and yesterday was just awful. And now today I feel fine again. It was just really disconcerting. It was literally 24 hours of wow and then fine. So I was curious about
I got hit with my first shot and I'm going to be driving very slowly to get my second one. I missed a day and a half of work with my first shot. I had the Moderna and I ran a fever. I was nauseous. Just everything. And I came to work and I had to leave because I thought I'd be just fine. No big deal. But that was my first one.
Maybe the second one won't be such a problem for you.
Okay, Ellen, thank you.
Fingers crossed for you.
Okay. I'm hoping.
Oh. So Lauren, what kind of shot have you had? I heard there were like, 2 or 3 different kind, and maybe each is different.
I got the Moderna.
Moderna. Oh,
Yeah. And
okay.
I have had people tell me that they had heard that if you've had COVID, that can happen with even the first shot. Now, I don't know if I've ever had it. My husband had it, but I tested negative. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. I don't know.
I had the Pfizer one, and after the first shot, I was a little tired and a little achy, but I'm also in my 40s and it could have been anything. Like it wasn't strong enough to be noticeable really, other than I was looking for symptoms and I was like, yeah, I guess I'm a little achy and a little tired, but that's not super unusual for me. Oh my gosh, though. Yesterday, I thought I could go to Target yesterday morning. So I got it on Wednesday morning. And I went, Wednesday night, I was feeling a little tired and achy, similar to the first shot, but no big deal. Oh, I went to Target and I barely made it home again, just dizzy, and the bottoms of my feet and my hands hurt. Like every muscle in my body just screamed, hurting. And I was like, I can't do this for very long, but everybody says 24 hours. And sure enough, this morning I'm fine. So
that's funny because mine was 24 hours after my shot is when I started to feel really crummy. And then it only lasted about 12 hours after that. And I slept for most of it. And I just had a fever, 101.5, and just kind of achy, just general, but it was fine. I'll take it.
Becca, you had Pfizer. I had Pfizer for my first one. So now I'm worried because I'm 20 years older than you are, honey. So if you are feeling that way, I better just write off the rest of.
Clear your calendar.
Clear your calendar. I have 2 paras who we got the first shot the same day and the second shot the same day. And so I was texting with them, how are you guys doing? One of them who actually has some other issues that put her at slightly higher risk. Second shot, totally fine. She's like, no, maybe a little tired and achy, not different than how I felt after the first shot, like searching for a symptom, but not really hitting anything hard. And my other para was just laid out like I was. So definitely plan on. So it's like I got it Wednesday morning. For most of Wednesday, I was fine, just maybe a little but it was Thursday that just, nope, I needed to be laying in bed.
Wow. I know I got a sub already for the day after my second shot, just because I wouldn't be able to teach if it was like the first one. And that's been a big thing with our union is we're having to use our sick leave for some of this, and 400 teachers in Mankato got the shot at the same time. So, that's another thing. I see Northfield did distant learning after the second shot, but I don't know. It's weird.
So are you all Pfizer? Somebody said Moderna.
I'm Moderna.
Okay. Nikki, you are too.
Moderna too for me.
So Susan, my partner got 2 shots of Pfizer, and the second shot, he didn't feel anything. He felt, the first one, he got a little bit of, pain on his arm, but second one, there's nothing. So each one is, so have hope, keep your hope. Okay.
Yeah. I'll try to be optimistic. It was not fun.
I definitely think it's not something you can gauge by how old someone is or what other types of physical health they're in. Like it seems to be just a luck of the draw thing, how your body responds to having this.
My 88-year-old grandma, she's like, I'm fine. Am I supposed to feel bad? I don't feel bad. What's going on? It feels like someone punched me in the arm, but that's about it. And I was like, no, it's okay, grandma. It's good.
I just kept telling myself, this means my body's building really good immunity.
It's working.
I got sick and I couldn't eat and I lost weight, which is really good because my youngest son is getting married. So I just thought, okay, that gave me a little boost for the weight loss.
Silver linings, Lori, silver linings.
That's right.
You gotta look for them.
And you know what? A little weight loss is better than a ventilator. So I think
Seriously.
Sylvia Duckworth, I think, Susan, you got me onto her. She's a cartoonist, whatever.
Mhm.
She lives in Canada, and she said she got her shot and her only side effects were hope and relief. And I was like, oh, side effects of hope and relief. And I feel like that outweighs the fever and body aches and chills, like
Yep.
hope and relief.
So much. Like, I've never been so happy to get a shot in my life. And even while I was miserable, I was just like, all I could think of was, what if I had gotten COVID? Like, I was just so grateful that this was going to protect me. So yeah, it's easier to get through that feeling really awful knowing. Anyhow, right,
Yeah.
where now it's like, if you can get it, because there's going to be plenty.
Exactly. So
Sorry.
patience is everything. So
Yeah. Well, everybody,
have a wonderful week. Thank you all. Great conversation as always. And we'll be back next week. Oh, I was going to say, and then the next week is Menafee, but no, that's not until April. So next week as usual. And please come with your ideas and thoughts of anything that you'd like to share. And oh, Ellen, what is this Headspace? What is Headspace?
Headspace is free for educators. So it's a mindfulness and meditation app.
Oh.
But yeah, so they are offering free access to K-12 teachers.
Excellent.
Otherwise, you have to pay for it. So
let me just put a note here for great. All right. What a wonderful way to end our thing. Thank you for that resource. All right, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday.
yeah, bye.
See you next Friday.